Necromancer's Bone Minions have long seen use in Guild Wars 2 in Minionmancer builds and in niche situations as a source of life force for Scourge stacks in endgame PvE content. However, the active skill Putrid Explosion has never been particularly notable. But on March 4th, a few players noticed that Putrid Explosion was suddenly over 10 times stronger than expected. This change presumably occurred after the End of Dragons expansion launch on February 28th. However, no changes to Putrid Explosion have been documented in the patch notes, tooltip, or API. So is the new Putrid Explosion a buff or a bug? Let's take a closer look at what's going on and what it means for Scourge players. Summon Bone Minions is a minion-type core Necromancer utility skill. When activated, the Necromancer raises 2 small bone minions, which attack the Necromancer's current target while in combat. While these minions are alive, the utility skill becomes Putrid Explosion. Each activation of Putrid Explosion destroys 1 bone minion and damages targets in an AoE around its body. When both bone minions are destroyed, Summon Bone Minions goes on cooldown. Prior to End of Dragons, this skill dealt a single instance of strike damage to up to 5 targets in a small AoE. On a standard DPS Scourge build in full Viper's gear, 2 uses of Putrid Explosion meant that Summon Bone Minions dealt, on average, less than 5,000 damage per cast to a target with 25 stacks of vulnerability. Now, instead of a single instance of damage, Putrid Explosion creates a damage field that pulses 10 times. Not only does each pulse deal the same strike damage as the old skill, but each pulse also applies weakness and 1 stack of poison, both with a 2-second base duration. Because of this, on the same full Viper's Scourge, Summon Bone Minions now deals over 70,000 damage per cast, an increase by a factor of 14. For a quick breakdown of the skill's damage, the strike damage is calculated using the minion's weapon strength times the minion's power, adjusted for critical chance and critical damage in this estimate, times the skill coefficient, number of hits, and strike modifier from vulnerability, all divided by the target's armor. The poison damage, however, uses the Necromancer's condition damage and condition duration stats. This means that increased condition damage and expertise will increase Putrid Explosion's damage, but an increase in power, precision, or ferocity will not. Putrid Explosion's damage could be further increased with the Death Magic trait line, which includes traits that increase the minion's strike damage by 25% and the Necromancer's poison damage by 15%, although this trait line would be a net DPS loss for Scourges in endgame PvE scenarios. A new Scourge benchmark has not yet been recorded since the End of Dragons expansion release, but early testing shows that, with Bone Minions, the Scourge benchmark is now over 39,000, possibly 40,000 damage per second, meaning Putrid Explosion alone represents an estimated 2,000 DPS gain over the previous benchmark. While Summon Bone Minions is a core Necromancer utility and could be taken on any Necromancer Elite specialization, the benefit may be unique to Scourge. Players are still testing Harbinger rotations, but the class has fewer available utility skill slots, as it needs elixirs to maintain Blight uptime. Because the strike damage scales on minion stats instead of the Necromancers, Putrid Explosion would not see benefit from Reaper's high power or critical damage. Now that we know what happened to Putrid Explosion, why did it happen? Without ArenaNet confirmation we can't be sure, but players have observed that the new effects are very similar to a skill used by Purist Necromancers and Purist Necromancer Spirits, 2 new enemy types added in Cantha in End of Dragons. These enemy NPCs summon minions with a skill called Drawing Upon the Power of Jormag, and when these minions die, they cast a skill named Putrid Cloud. Putrid Cloud is a large AoE that pulses 16 times, dealing strike damage and applying weakness with a 5-second duration and 1 stack of poison with a 2-second duration. A larger AoE and more pulses, but otherwise eerily similar to the new Putrid Explosion. One theory is that when these new enemies were added to the game and given this unique skill, it somehow affected Putrid Explosion and caused similar changes to that existing skill. However, Putrid Cloud has a unique skill ID from Putrid Explosion and slightly different effects. The other theory is that when these enemies were created and Putrid Cloud was added, ArenaNet intentionally updated Putrid Explosion to mirror this new skill. However, why would these changes not be listed in the game update notes along with other balance changes to existing Necromancer skills? Is the new Putrid Explosion an intended effect? Only time can tell. In the meantime, let the Bone Minions enjoy their moment in the spotlight.